Welcome to the Sound of Movement podcast. Today we are continuing our week-long chat about nutrition. We've had a lot of members of our UMS online coaching tribe ask us how to eat for building muscle. And today we're going to be going deep into that topic. Stick around. What's up, everyone? In case we haven't met, my name's Rad Burmeister. I'm one of the founders of Unity Gym and the UMS, the Unified Movement System, where we turn driven people into athletes. If you want to know how we do it, grab one of our free blueprints, the Strength Blueprint, the Nutrition Blueprint, or the Flexibility Blueprint. We've got a link in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube, or in the podcast description if you're listening to our podcast. I am joined today by one of my business partners, co-founders of Unity Gym, the man behind the mic, Richard Lurley. How are you, bro?
Good morning, Rad. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is going to be a good discussion topic because Richie is very passionate about building muscle and about nutrition for building muscle. But before we get into that, today's show is brought to you by our UMS, the Unified Movement System. If you haven't yet, you can grab a free month trial subscription to our amazing online coaching program where we balance strength, flexibility, and fitness all into the one workout, teach you how to create customized programs and achieve things that you've never achieved before, like amazing calisthenics, feats of flexibility, strength. It's all in there. Go and jump on it. And also, go and join our private Facebook group, the UMS Movement Mastermind, where we record these shows live and answer our members' questions. Now that all that's out of the way, let's get into the show. And we are going to be talking about nutrition for building muscle. Topic near and dear to your heart. Hey, Richie?
Yeah, man. As someone that's very passionate about putting on as much muscle as I can, getting stronger, improving my physique and strength, it's an important one.
Yeah.
And it's very important, actually. A lot of people don't understand how important getting their daily protein intake in and nutrition every day is going to help them with their gains.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one of those things that really is. I paid off for years, and I just thought it was something for bodybuilders. I thought, getting this, really understanding protein and trying to optimize your protein intake was just for bodybuilders, and it was something that I rejected for ages. Yanni did the same, and when we finally embraced it, when we finally just said, all right, this is what we're going to do, we're going to take this on board seriously, and without changing much with training, just changing the way we ate and the way we understood protein, the muscle started to pack on. And, I'm not talking about, you can look at us all, none of us are bodybuilders here, but, we've got muscle on us and, we're in better shape than most people. It works, and it's important to understand this stuff. And we should have our little disclaimer that Richard and I spoke about before this. We're not nutritionists and we're not dietitians. So take this advice with a grain of salt. What we are is personal trainers with a lot of experience and a lot of passion for this topic. And we've done a lot of research. So I've gone personally to workshops with some leading authorities on muscle protein synthesis, when they were doing workshops for personal trainers to help us to understand it. We've got a good friend who holds a PhD in metabolic research, who stays up to date with all the current research, and who we've gone to a lot of workshops with him. And Richard has personally done a lot of study, on the topic. And then on top of all of that, we have put that research into practice and produced a good result for ourselves and for our members.
We might not be experts on nutrition, but we follow some of the foremost authorities on protein synthesis, how to build muscle. So you can rest assured that the information that you get from us, we get from credible sources.
Yep.
It's not bullshit. It's not bro science. It's it's science-backed stuff, and it's probably some of the best information you can find.
Yep. And it's not just that. It's that we've taken that information and deployed it in our own lives effectively long term. So we're not going to give you any advice now that is considered to be a diet or considered to be a short-term plan. We're going to give you long-term strategies. Like if you make the decision that you want to start building some muscle, this is how you can eat long-term, forever. You don't need to think of it as a short-term thing. And that's really, in our opinion, what you should be doing. You want to be looking at ways that you can, optimize your muscle building long term. And, if you're going to the gym and you're working out and you don't have a part of your plan isn't to build muscle and get stronger, that's probably one of the first things you should be doing. You should be asking yourself, why are you not doing that? It's really funny for some people. This is what I used to say. I used to say, I don't care about building muscle. It's not why I train. I train for other reasons. I want to be able to do movements and stuff. But you got to understand that it's muscle that is why you can move. It's the muscle that causes you to be able to move. So when you've got more muscle on your body, then you're going to move better. Of course, there's a cut-off point with that. You can go too far, but man, you're not going to do that easily. You're not going to get too much muscle on your body anytime soon, unless you do a hell of a lot more than what we're doing, eh?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, and we also have trained a lot of women where they say, no, I don't want to build muscle because I don't want to be bulky. I don't want to, that's not the look that I'm going for. Everybody each to their own, but I'd challenge that, and I try and educate everybody that they should want to build as much muscle as possible, because the time comes in your life where you'll start losing muscle and it actually becomes harder to build it, and you're basically just working to maintain it. So you want to build muscle as much as you can.
Yeah, a lot of the studies done on health, whether your goal is to put muscle on or not, even to lose weight. Mm-hmm. A lot of the studies out there show that the healthier people out there do have a good portion of muscle on them, a high percentage of lean mass and low body fat. So regardless of your goals, I think everyone should be looking at putting on muscle and being good at it.
Yep.
Being good at structuring their diet in a way that increases lean mass.
Yep.
It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, guys.
Now, what we're going to do today, we're going to keep this really simple, okay? The reason why we're going to keep this really simple is for two reasons. Number one, we want to help the people that know nothing about this. I don't like just throwing out heaps of information so that people become really confused about this topic. And number two is there's people that might have heard this before, but they're still not getting it right. And I just want to reinforce what the most important thing to do is. So all we're really going to focus on today is nutrition for building muscle, and the backbone of that is getting your protein right. So I really want to talk about how much protein you need, why you need protein first, how much protein you need, and how you should be planning your meals around protein to avoid eating excess calories that aren't helping you to fuel your body properly. Okay? So why do you need protein? Well, everything in our body is protein. It's different types of amino acids, and protein is what is required to build muscle. So when you go to the gym and you do a workout, if you do the right kind of workout at least to build muscle, you do resistance training, all you basically do is send a signal to the cells in the muscles to enlarge. The purpose of lifting weights, the purpose of doing push-ups or pull-ups or squats or whatever, is to cause damage to the tissue that then causes a hormonal response, which is basically a signal that says, let's build more muscle. Let's get better for this the next time it happens. And then the body goes, okay, that's great. Where's the protein that I need? Where's the fuel that I need in order to achieve that result?
Building blocks of muscle.
Yeah, that's right. And then the food that you eat, it's the protein that is the, the Yanni always likes to say, and this is true, the workout is the stimulus. It creates the signal. The eating the protein and the recovery, the rest is the catalyst. So you've gone to the gym, you've done your workout, and now you're in the recovery period. The recovery period is usually 48 to 72 hours. It can be blown out longer than that, but the majority of muscle building will happen in that first 72 hours. You now need to basically eat enough protein, and it's a lot more than what people think. I was really surprised at this, and this is why, for me, I rejected it at first. Now, what we're about to say as well, just remember this, we're about to teach you how to eat to maximize protein
protein
synthesis. Mental block, to build muscle. We're not talking about surviving. We're talking about thriving. So if you don't do this, you're not going to die. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about thriving, about building maximizing that muscle building for your training. And the way to do that is to basically multiply your body weight in kilograms by 2.2, and that gives you the amount of grams of protein that you need to eat in a 24-hour window. So for me, I weigh 87 kilos. I did this calculation yesterday, and it was 191 or 192 grams of protein in a 24-hour period. Okay. Now, the thing is that the protein that you need to eat needs to be spaced out throughout the day. You can't have all of that in one meal, or it won't be as effective if you have it all in one meal. And what we're going to talk to you about is I learned everything about this calculation. Most of the information that I got was from about 8 years ago. Richard stayed a little bit more up to date. And what we're going to talk now about quickly is the information that I learned years ago versus the information that Richard's learning now. And you can tweak it to the way that you understand it. But what I learned 8 years ago was that you could only absorb a certain amount of protein in a 3-hour window, which is basically 0.4 times your body weight in kilograms equals the amount of grams that you can have in one window, which for me is 35 grams in a 3-hour window, which means that if you divide 192 grams, my daily requirement, by 35 grams, it gives me 5.5 serves of protein a day. So if I have to have that every 3 hours, that works out well, basically, from breakfast to dinner, spacing out over the day, every 3 hours you have protein. But Richard's learnt some newer, more up-to-date research recently, which is a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, like the world of protein synthesis is a changing world. It's always being updated. The more studies we do on it, the better we find better ways of eating and taking this protein in to optimize this protein synthesis. And that's what we mean by protein synthesis, is where the body takes on that protein to use it for muscle building. Now, your body can use protein for energy, a lot of other things, but we're talking about like that on switch for, okay, I'm going to use this for muscle building. Now, what we thought was the way to eat protein, what we were taught to believe for a while, was that the more frequently we can get these protein doses in, the better it was for optimizing this muscle protein synthesis, So we had, bodybuilders and everybody eating protein shakes every 2 hours to optimize that. And, just recently, this week, I was reading an article on Instagram by Holly Baxter. Now, she's the wife of Layne Norton, and he has a PhD in protein synthesis. So that's his ballpark area of how to basically eat protein for muscle building. And what they're finding in a few of these studies now is that that window where you have to multiply eat protein is actually a bit stretched out. So it's probably even better now to wait a bit longer between protein doses. So if you're thinking about, okay, to optimize protein, I got to have it frequently, then you're probably looking at the frequency being between a 4 to 5 hour window every time you eat. Now, why that is, apparently there's a process called refractorizing, protein refractorizing. So there's a period where once you stimulate protein synthesis, any more protein or any more amino acids put into the body in that time doesn't further stimulate it. So once the switch is on, it's on, until 4 to 5 hours later, where it sort of switches off. And that's when you can hit that again. So if you're thinking about how do I do that in a day, so 8 a.m, you have your first breakfast meal. 4 hours later, you have lunch. 4 hours later, you might have a protein shake. And then 4 hours again, dinner. Now, each time you do have a protein dose, it should be optimally what Rab was saying. It's that 0.4 grams times body weight. So typically for a small person, it's about closer towards 20 grams of protein. A heavier, larger person, it's closer towards 30 or more grams. So that's essentially what you're looking at when it comes to frequency. It's that 3, 4 to 5 hour window of timing.
Yep. Yeah, and I've actually personally found that has worked well for me. Like I I can definitely build muscle from having 3 to 4 serves of protein a day and having slightly larger serves. I have found that going for the 3, like I've even found that I've built muscle when I was fasting and I was only eating for 8 hours and I was basically having protein every 2.5 hours. So there's different ways to go about it. And what we wanted to really talk to you guys about today, like if you don't want to get as serious as a bodybuilder, but you at least want to build some muscle, then I think the most important thing to do is to understand what your daily protein requirements are, so the amount of grams in a day.
Yeah.
And then think about how you can hit that with 3 or 4 meals a day, which means eating more protein than what most people are used to. And I think if there's one thing that you're going to take away from this, is that you really want to, you want to be building every meal that you eat around protein. And if you're not, then any meal that you don't build around protein, like for example, if you think, I'm going to have some, bread with, I don't know, whatever, like a heavy carbohydrate meal, which there's so many examples of. There's so many meals that you'll look at, like people will think, oh my God, this is such a delicious meal. This is what I'm going to eat. But for you and me, when we look at it, you just immediately think, well there's no protein in that meal. I'm going to eat all these calories and it's going to fill me up, but I'm not actually going to get any protein in it. So that's one of the first things that you need to do. And it's actually even hard for me to try and think of examples of really high carbohydrate meals, except for something like pasta or pizza or, I don't know. There's, a lot of vegetarian meals are really high carbohydrate and low protein. Whereas when Richard and Yanni and I eat, when you look at our meals, there's always a very big protein source there. And it's usually, red meat, chicken, fish, something like that. And if you're not doing that, and you're not doing that 3 times a day and then having probably 1 serve of protein powder a day, then you could be doing better with getting this stuff right. And then the other thing that you want to think of is, because if you want to build muscle, chances are you also don't want to get fatter at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't really know anybody that's ever come to me and said, I want to build muscle and I don't mind if I also put fat on at the same time. I don't think anybody really wants to do that. The other thing to really consider is that you also want to avoid empty calories. You want to avoid eating shit. Because so we've talked about, protein requirements for building muscle, but you also want to remain healthy. You want to make sure that your body is in a healthy state. You don't want to be going to the doctor one day, getting a blood test, and them telling you that you're at risk of a heart attack. Like you've got all these muscles on your body, but your bloods are just showing all the wrong stuff. You're pre-diabetic or you're diabetic or whatever. So the other thing to think about is so we've spoken about eating high protein sources. So what would that look like in a day? So for me, if I'm going to eat 3 meals a day, what it looks like for me is always guaranteed every time when I eat breakfast, it's eggs. And I do that because it's the simplest thing. It's something that anybody associates with breakfast. Like if you go and eat eggs at a cafe or something, nobody's going to look weirdly at you for it.
But this is the interesting thing. How many eggs do you eat, Brad?
Yeah. That is the interesting thing. And I'm happy that you asked me that so I didn't just throw it out there. So I eat 6 or 7 eggs in a meal. And the reason I do that is because 1 egg has 5 to 6 grams of protein in it for the size, depending on the size of the egg, which means that to get even 35 grams of protein, which is like as little as I would want to get in one meal, I need to eat 6 or 7 eggs. So when you look at my plate, like most of the time when I see people eat eggs, it's usually accompanied by a couple of really big slices of toast. Yep. And the eggs is actually a really small part of the meal. Yep. So there'll be eggs and there'll be toast and there might be some tomato and mushrooms and some spinach. And most people look at that and think, like their mind looks at that and think that's a really healthy meal.
Yep.
And it's funny because what most people associate a healthy meal with is how fresh the food is. I've heard people say that all the time. They say, oh, look at this, it's such fresh food, it's so healthy. And I say, yeah, great, fresh is good. I would definitely, the meals that we eat are fresh, like if as opposed to something that was not fresh, meaning cooked last night or frozen or whatever. Yep. Mm-hmm. But what we're talking about now is we're going into macronutrient content, which is carbohydrate, fat, and protein.
Yep.
And if you look at if you go to a cafe and you order a cafe breakfast, in Australia at least, the standard serve of eggs is 2 eggs. You have to ask for extra eggs if you want more than 2.
Yep.
So when you get a meal that's going to fill you up and you're only getting 2 eggs, that's only 10 grams of protein. Now, granted, there is some protein in the bread, and
Yep.
maybe you've got some salmon or whatever. But if we're talking about the way that you and I eat, or Yanni, it's not even close to enough protein.
So just to clarify, we eat in a way that we are intentionally trying to initiate protein synthesis, so getting enough protein. Because 10 grams won't do that.
Yep.
15 grams won't do that.
Yep.
20 grams for some small people will.
Yeah, it'll touch the sides. Yep, it will. It'll touch the
But honestly,
sides.
like, you're looking, every time you're looking at if your goal is to build muscle, maintain muscle, you want to initiate protein synthesis, get enough protein.
Yep.
2 eggs won't do it.
Yep.
3 eggs won't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you want good and the other reason why I eat so many eggs is eggs are a powerhouse of nutrition, man.
Yeah.
Like they're basically like mini vitamin bombs. They've got so much good stuff in them.
Yeah, good fats,
Yeah,
protein.
yeah, and they're a really complete source of nutrients. If you go really deep into like beyond, as I said, beyond protein. So that would be breakfast. So breakfast for me would be, if I'm cooking at home, honestly, my breakfasts are 6 or 7 eggs with half or 1 full avocado, and if I can be bothered, maybe half a tomato. Like
Now,
if I can be.
Let's just clarify. This is rad.
Yeah.
There's probably women out there that are a lot smaller than rad.
Yeah, they don't need that.
Need
Maybe
7
4
eggs.
But even still, even with small women, I'll say, look, based on your body size, you'll need 4 or 5 eggs, and they just go, oh my god.
But that's eggs alone. You can eat other stuff with it.
Yeah,
Think like if you're having breakfast, you can add some meats in there. I mean, I wouldn't recommend having bacon or red meat every single time, but think creatively. Like maybe we should talk a little bit about the apps that you can use to help find your protein sources as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I don't even know which apps there are that are out there. I've heard that MyFitnessPal is good, but there's all these apps out there that you can use to help you.
Calorie King.
To track your macronutrients and to understand. But basically, you want your breakfast, lunch, and dinner to be high protein sources. So if you have eggs for breakfast. And this is I drill the eggs thing because most people really get breakfast wrong.
Yeah,
it's the meal that people stuff up the most with this.
Nutri-Grain.
Yeah.
Weet-Bix.
People are just eating massive carbohydrate meals, and you're really starting the day the wrong way. Because what lunch and dinner should look like for you if you're not a vegetarian is some form of meat. Looking for that. You're wanting to be. To get you, so for me, 190 grams of protein in a day. So if I'm eating 3 meals a day and a protein shake, I'm looking at about 50 grams of protein, per meal for lunch and dinner. So, and I do that easily. I'll have 200 to 300 grams of red meat or chicken or fish or whatever in one meal easily. And then vegetables, vegetables and salad. And you can cook it in all different ways, like Richard and I come in to work with all these different cooked meals. But, I'll tell you about what my go-to lunch is if I haven't bought food today, which is happening today. Alana and I just didn't get our shit together last night, and what we made for dinner, we just didn't make enough for me to bring to lunch today. So I go to the shop and I just buy salad and a tin of tuna, and I've got some balsamic vinegar and olive oil out the back there, and I just make that for my meal because I know that it contains a decent amount of nutrients in it and gives me my minimum protein requirement. But breakfast, lunch, and dinner like that. Protein shake at some stage between that to get a little bit more.
Now, why do we recommend the protein shake? This is probably a good point to cover as well.
Well, I'll tell you why I recommend it, and then you can tell the guys why you recommend it. Is that I recommend it because if you have a good quality whey protein shake, it is, for me, it's just a great way to bolster the amount of protein that you're getting in a day. And personally, for me, when I look at that 190 grams of protein, it's expensive to do that. It's expensive if you're going to eat just eggs and meat. Eggs are definitely on the cheaper end of the spectrum. And it is, I find it hard to eat more than 3 meals a day And to eat meals that are that big, that are going to have that amount of protein, if you're only going to eat 3 meals a day, I just find that challenging.
Yeah.
And I have tried that before. You and I both have. Like, there was a period of time where I was eating, like a long period of time, I'm talking multiple years of eating 5 meals a day. I've never been able to do 6, honestly. But eating 5 meals a day. And when I was doing that, some of those meals were liquid meals where I was doing 6 egg smoothies. So wrap your head around that for a minute. I was making a smoothie a couple of times a day, 2 times a day, having 6 raw eggs in a smoothie with coconut water and some banana.
So basically, it's to do with the ease of eating, and getting the protein in.
Makes it easier.
When you need to get that much protein into you, especially if you're a guy and you're quite large, you need more. It becomes a lot, like building muscle becomes a lot about how much food you can eat, how much protein you can eat. So even for the ladies out there that don't like eating big meals, I know personally my girlfriend, she doesn't like eating big meals. So for you guys, the protein powders are even more essential because that's how you can sort of keep the meal sizes down, but still get your daily intake in. So I really, like Brad was saying, I really like the protein powder idea because it just makes getting that amount in every day easier to do, more sustainable, without making meals too large.
Yep. I think that this is a point that shouldn't be brushed over because it is so critical to understand this. Yanni, Richard, and I all have protein shakes for this reason. And we do it because we've been doing this for so long. We have tried so many different ways of doing things, and there's no way to build muscle without getting enough protein. And if you're going to go down this road, a protein shake is such an inexpensive way of getting some good protein in for you. Now, quality matters, of course. There are crap protein shakes out there. So what should you look for with a protein shake? Basically look for one that is like whey protein isolate is a really good one for building muscle if you don't have any problems with dairy. And you want to basically get one that has nothing else added to it except maybe some flavor. Like the one that we sell, it's a brand called VPA. It's a Australian made brand. And it has a very high protein content. So it has 26.8 grams of protein per 30 grams, which is very high. Some of the lower ones have 24 grams of protein. Some of the really low ones have only 22 grams of protein per serve of 30 grams. And that means if they've got less protein in it, it means they've got more other shit in it. Mm-hmm. It means that it's not as pure. And you don't need anything else. When you get a protein powder, you don't need any added, if you get a whey protein powder.
You've got to be careful with supplements, guys, because this is how a lot of supplement companies make that extra dollar. They promote all this necessary additives in the proteins that aren't needed. You just need 100% whey protein, a little bit of flavoring, and that's it. Yeah,
100% whey protein isolate is our preferred whey. You can get whey protein concentrate, and some bodybuilders would argue that might be better for building muscle. But the only difference between whey protein concentrate and isolate is that they've removed the fat from the isolate. Right?
I don't think it matters too much. I think the isolate is a safe bet, especially for people who find milk makes their stomach a little bit upset.
Yep.
The isolate's probably the better option, and it's more protein per gram of weight than anything else. Yep. With concentrate, there's a little bit of fat, milk fats in there.
Yep. So that, like, guys, if you're not doing that, then we could go so much deeper on nutrition for building muscle. There's so much science behind it that we can fill your heads with. But at the grassroots, if you're not getting this right, if you're not calculating your body weight, 2.2 times body weight in kilograms equals grams of protein required per day, spacing that out in at least 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch and dinner, and then even better, having a protein shake in there as well, then that's what you need to be focusing on. That's what you need to be doing. And then the next step, and it really should happen at the same time, is cleaning up your diet, getting rid of processed foods, basically, highly processed foods, which is basically anything that comes in a packet that isn't, fresh food. Like if it's in a packet and it's not vegetables, of course, you can go to the supermarket and get tomatoes or snow peas or something that come in a packet. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about like in Australia, anything that isn't around the edge of the supermarket, really.
Yeah. I think we'll get into that on another day, right?
Yeah, we will.
Let's keep it more like muscle building.
About protein, yeah, for sure. Let's quickly answer Vinny's questions here. Vinny is saying, does the frequency and or amount increase over 50? The frequency doesn't, but as we said before, Vinny, the amount over 55 does. You need to double your protein requirement because the body can't extract the protein and use it as efficiently as when you're under 55. Vinny's saying, I try to get at least 20 grams per meal, usually 3 meals per day. That's great, but it's not even close to the amount that you need to maximize muscle protein synthesis. Not to survive, to maximize what we're talking about here. You're barely touching the sides there, bro. And then you're saying, I probably eat more carbs than is recommended, but my metabolism seems to be able to handle it. That's a great comment. Everybody is different, If you feel good within your skin and you're comfortable with where you are, keep doing you. What we're talking about here is what we found, what works with us, and going off what we've learned from the research that we've read.
Yeah. Carbs can definitely help. I mean, a big part of building muscle is getting enough calories in, and if you're restricting carbohydrate completely, it does make that harder. So the fact that eating more carbs isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'd just be mindful of the protein content and that you're eating enough.
We can probably talk about that tomorrow because today all we've really talked about is protein, why it's needed, how much you need and how you get it. Maybe tomorrow we can talk about calories and how calories affect building muscle, which is how we can bring carbohydrate and fat into it as well. So tune in tomorrow, guys. That's what we'll talk about tomorrow.
Can I just say one more thing? One thing we didn't cover. This goes for the other days as well. But get yourself a macro tracker, definitely, because all this protein talk about how many grams and everything is going to go over your head unless you know how much grams of protein is in your certain foods. So get yourself a macro tracker, Calorie King, MyFitnessPal. Have a look at the main foods you eat: chicken, beef, eggs, and have a look at how much grams of protein per item. Okay, and then start doing the estimates. We'll talk about more of that next time.
Yep. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that far.
It's the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.